What exactly makes a good Wii game can often vary. Obviously, there's the more traditional approach of basically a title that just plays well, but then you also have titles that work towards the system's strengths. And personally, I find a smart use of the system's motion controls is as satisfying, if not more so, than any kind of well-polished game on the Wii itself. And I think very few of those games can ask for constant motion from the player and still succeed. However, Family Jockey is one of the exceptions. This is a Japan-only horse racing game by Bandai Namco that leans away from the horse racing simulator and more towards a Mario Kart style setup where you're racing around the track and collecting up power-ups to attack foes. But there are some unique mechanics here thanks to the horse racing setting with stamina management. But what really stands out is how you control it. Where Mario Kart Wii asks you to turn the Wii remote on the side to mimic a wheel, Family Jockey puts the reins in your hands using the Wii remote and nunchuck. You can just play using a Wii remote, but I personally don't think this feels nearly as good. Having those two controllers really replicates what you would think it would feel like to have the reins in your hand. And this is important because of how the game controls. In order to have your horse speed up, you basically have to shake the Wii remote and nunchuck up and down at a fairly consistent rate to keep them moving at a constant pace. If you want to go ahead and go faster, you can also press the B button and waggle the Wii remote to basically use the whip to slap the horse's butt to get it to do a dash. And so, as you may expect, in order to turn left and right, you then lean the Wii remote and the nunchuck from side to side to steer the horse. It's a motion-intensive game that probably won't resonate with a lot of people. Here's a stream of me playing it. Yep, you're doing this non-stop. It gets close enough that what's happening on screen feels connected to what you're doing with the Wii remote and nunchuck in real time. And overall, is it just a gimmick? Yeah, it is, but I think it's really fun to play with. Now, there are motion control issues in this game. For example, the jump. It requires a very particular timing. Specifically, they don't seem to want you to be swinging the reins up and down when you swing the Wii remote and nunchuck back. So you have to kind of pause and then wait to jump. But once you get that timing down, it works most of the time, but it does occasionally fail, which is really frustrating, especially when it costs you a race. There's also kind of a problem where when you're flicking the reins up and down, it's easy to accidentally turn. This is alleviated by the fact that the player is basically locked to a track. So when you're moving left to right, it's not like true freeform movement, but it keeps you from, accidentally turning around and heading in reverse unintentionally. But I think these are minor headaches, especially for how long this game is. If you want to sit down and play through the single player Grand Prix, it only takes about 3 hours. Although if you want to unlock all of the horses in the game, it's closer to 6 hours. You basically go through the Grand Prix twice. However, it requires you to go through the multiplayer Grand Prix, so if you're playing alone like I am, you just connect another Wii remote, throw it on the floor, and race in split screen. It's not super ideal, but if you want to unlock all the horses by yourself, this is a way you can do it. Though, as I mentioned earlier, the motion controls aren't the only thing that makes it interesting. Stamina management plays a big role here. When you whip the horse using the actual whip, it expends a lot of the horse's stamina, while slapping with the reins will consume a smaller amount, but not giving you as big of a speed boost, but still kind of evening out with your stamina recovery. Not doing anything at all, though, is definitely the fastest way to recover, but slowing down obviously isn't ideal. So there are carrots that are laid out around the track that you can collect to recover stamina, which interestingly enough don't actually respawn on the following lap, so there's a finite amount in each race. Then you can also recover stamina by basically tracking behind another rider. It will go ahead and slowly recover your stamina too, though it's a bit dangerous since if you pass in front of them, they'll start getting stamina back from you. But all in all, even with these recovery methods, stamina is a pretty precious resource to the game, so knowing when to save it is often pretty important. It can be super helpful for putting distance between you and an enemy if they're trying to get stamina off your back, or you may want to save a good chunk for the final dash so you can basically whip your way to the finish once you hit the last stretch. So even if you put the motion controls aside, I think that is kind of a neat feature that makes this title stand out. However, the rest of the content is largely straightforward. There are a lot of horses with different stats with faster turning, faster whipping speed, but I found that top speed horses largely win out just because of the fact that you're locked on a track already, so there's not a lot of need for other stats. Zebra is king. I used him all the time. And if you don't read any Japanese, using a phone translation app like Google Translate to point the camera at the screen to translate the horse's description text will get you plenty enough information to figure out, what the best horse is for you. There's also some of the more typical side fares of a racing game with the time trial mode, where you collect as many carrots as possible within the shortest time while completing like 3 laps. And then also another interesting different type of time trial mode, where essentially you have to hit a point on the track at a set time. So if you arrive at a point too soon or too late, you get deducted points. It's almost like a Densha de Go thing, like Densha de Jockey or something. And there's one more cute mode that's exclusive to multiplayer, where basically Pac-Man will chase you down on the course. And what this mode is all about is basically making sure you manage your stamina. So when Pac-Man starts to speed up, you can use the stamina you have to put distance between you and him until he backs off again. But it's more of just like a silly gimmick rather than some like in-depth Pac-Man survival mode. But all that, I think, is just less important than the fact that this game just feels really fun to control. And if you like games like Wii Sports, Wii Ski, and other things that aim to create that connection between the player's motion and what's happening on screen, I think Family Jockey will be a great fit for you. Just keep in mind the content itself is a bit shallow. I mentioned earlier Wii Ski. That's technically Family Ski in Japan, so it's part of the same franchise. So if you are looking for a game like this that has more satisfying content overall, I highly recommend the Wii Ski / Family Ski game. I'm not a huge fan of the and snowboard version of it, so just stick to that original one if you want to take a direct recommendation from me. Otherwise, if you're interested in more Wii imports, I did a video a while ago on Keikaishi, which is kind of like a neat action-adventure on-rails shooter kind of game that's really cool. And then I also did a video on Happy Dance Collection, which is also a Namco title, and that basically is a fashion rhythm game where you dress up a character for a score, and you go and like basically get the second half of your score from dancing. So I think all 3 of those games are great fits if you're looking for titles that kind of fit within the Wii's strengths. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please share it. I have a hard time getting my content around, so I always appreciate somebody passing it along. One Controller Port is a channel with a focus on obscure and underappreciated games, so if you're interested, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can see when the next video is coming up. Anyways, thank you again for coming.